The girl in the cold cell. The space station was quiet. Too quiet. Only the sound of buzzing lights and cold metal echoed through the long halls. Behind a thick steel door, deep underground, there was a small cell. Inside that cell, a little girl sat alone. Her name was Elara. She looked about 10 years old, with silver white hair and glowing blue eyes. Her thin arms were wrapped around her knees. She wore no shoes. Her feet were red from the cold floor. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her skin was pale, almost shining in the dark. The cell had no bed, no blanket, no light, only darkness and silence. She hadn't spoken in weeks. The guards outside never talked to her. They only brought a small tray of food once a day. Sometimes they didn't bring it at all. "She's dangerous," one alien guard whispered to another. "She's cursed," the other replied. "Better if she dies here." No one knew her real story. No one wanted to. But someone was watching her. Far above the prison floor, inside the security room, a human soldier named Dax Monroe sat in front of a screen. He worked for the Galactic Patrol, a peacekeeping force made of many species from across the galaxy. He was strong, quiet, and always followed orders. Until now. He couldn't stop looking at the girl on the screen. Every day, he checked her camera. Every day, she was still there, sitting in the same spot, eyes wide open, shaking in the cold. Dax leaned closer to the screen. Something about her felt wrong. Not her, the way they treated her. She was just a kid. Why is she even in there? He asked his commander once. "Don't ask questions, Monroe. She's not our problem," the commander had said. "Forget about her." But Dax couldn't. Late that night, when the halls were empty and the lights were low, Dax returned to the screen. The girl hadn't moved. Not even a little. He saw her lips moving. She was whispering something. He turned up the volume. "I want to go home." Those were the words. Dax froze. The sound hit his heart like a punch. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Pain. He remembered his little sister. She died during the Earth-Mars War. She used to sit like that when she was scared. She used to say the same words when she was alone. "I want to go home." Suddenly, Dax couldn't just sit and watch anymore. He got up, quietly, carefully. He left the security room and walked through the long halls. He reached the prison level and stopped at her cell. 2 alien guards stood there. "Can't let you in, human," one of them said. "Orders from the top." "I'm just checking the cameras," Dax lied. "Routine." The guards looked at each other, then moved aside. Dax walked past them and looked through the small window in the steel door. The girl was awake. She looked at him. Their eyes met. For a moment, everything went still. No sound, no movement, just the cold air between them. Then she blinked. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Dax stepped back. He wasn't allowed to open the door. It would be a crime. A serious one. But his hand moved to the access panel anyway. He stopped himself just before pressing the button. Not yet. That night, Dax went back to his room. He couldn't sleep. The image of the girl's eyes stayed in his mind. The next day, he returned to the security room and searched her file. The screen showed a red warning. sci-fi. Top security only. He used a secret code to open it. What he found shocked him. Elara was not just a prisoner. She was part of the royal line of Zetherians, an alien race known for their ancient powers. Her parents had died during a lab accident 2 years ago. She was the only survivor. Some said she caused the accident. Others believed she was the weapon. But Dax didn't see a weapon. He saw a scared, hungry girl who just wanted to go home. And something inside him whispered, "Break the rules. Save her." The silent past they hide. Dax couldn't forget her eyes. Even while walking through the bright corridors of the Galactic Patrol Base, even while drinking his bitter coffee, even when listening to his commander barking out orders, Her eyes stayed in his mind. Those glowing blue eyes, full of pain, cold, and silence. He had seen prisoners before. Pirates, rebels, war criminals. He had seen them scream, fight, beg, even lie. But Alara didn't scream. She didn't fight. She didn't beg. She just sat there, alone, forgotten. And that made her different. That night, long after most of the crew had gone to rest, Dax returned to the restricted data chamber, a secret room full of protected files. Only high-ranking officers were allowed in. But Dax wasn't just any soldier. He had earned special clearance during the war on planet Draxus. He used his personal code and entered the chamber. The lights turned on with a soft hum. In front of him was a glass wall filled with glowing screens. He typed one name, Alara. At first, nothing showed up. Then the screen flashed red. ACCESSDNID. High security. Dax frowned. He tried again. This time he used an old override code he had kept hidden since his battle days. The screen paused, then unlocked. Files appeared. Pictures, reports, videos. What Dax saw made his blood run cold. Alara was not born in prison. She was once called the Light of Zithira, a child born to Queen Serena and General Kairos, rulers of the Zithirian Empire. But something had gone terribly wrong. 2 years ago, a fire broke out in the Zithirian Science Temple, where powerful energy crystals were kept. The explosion destroyed half the planet's capital. Hundreds died, including the Queen and General. Only one survivor remained, Alara. She was found unconscious, glowing with the same energy as the broken crystals. After that, the Alien Council declared her unstable and dangerous. They took her in secret, locked her away in the Galactic Space Station, and erased all public records of her life. The people of Zithira believed she died in the fire, but she didn't. She was just hidden, abandoned. Dax leaned back in shock. "They're scared of her," he whispered. "They're hiding her from the world." He clicked on one final file, a short video, hidden under layers of code. It showed Alara at the age of 5, standing in a garden. Her mother knelt beside her, smiling. The girl was laughing. Her hands sparkled with tiny lights, stars floating in her palms. She looked so happy, so innocent. Suddenly, the video glitched. The screen turned white. A warning popped up. "This recording is property of the Zithirian Council. Unauthorized access will be punished." Dax quickly closed the file. His hands were shaking now. This wasn't just about one girl in a cell. This was about a powerful secret the entire Galactic Council wanted to bury. They feared her powers. They feared what she might become. The next day, Dax walked past the prison level again. He couldn't go in. Not yet. But he paused in front of the door and looked through the tiny window. Alara was awake. She was drawing something on the floor with her finger. There was no pen, no paper. She just moved her finger slowly over the cold metal floor. Dax looked closer. It was a shape, a circle inside a star, a symbol. He had seen it before, in the files. It was the royal crest of Zithira. She remembered who she was. Even in silence, she remembered. Later that night, Dax sat in his room, staring at a small photo he kept beside his bed. His little sister, Mia. She had died in a blast, just like Alara's family. She too had been caught in a war started by powerful people who didn't care about the innocent. He whispered, "Mia, what should I do?" But he already knew the answer. He had broken rules before to save lives. This time, it wasn't about a planet. It was about one child. And maybe saving her could change everything. Meanwhile, far above the station, in the shadows of a floating council ship, alien leaders watched the camera feeds. One of them, a cold-eyed, gray-skinned elder, pointed to the prison cell. "Her energy is growing," he said. Another nodded. "We must act soon. If she escapes. She won't, the elder said. We've cut her off from the crystals. She will weaken and die quietly. But they were wrong. Because somewhere down below, one human was already planning to break every law to stop that from happening. And he wasn't alone anymore. The human who disobeyed. For 3 nights, Dax Monroe didn't sleep. He ate little, spoke less, and ignored every conversation that didn't start with the name Alara. His mind kept returning to that lonely cell, to her wide blue eyes, to the symbol she drew on the floor, the royal crest of a forgotten empire. She wasn't a prisoner. She wasn't a monster. She was a secret that scared the galaxy's most powerful leaders. And yet, no one cared. Not the guards, not the commanders, not the council. Except Dax. He sat alone in the maintenance bay, tools and parts scattered around him, pretending to fix a patrol drone. But he wasn't fixing anything. He was planning something dangerous. A rescue. The plan wasn't perfect. Not even close. But time was running out. According to hidden files he unlocked, Alara's body was weakening fast. Her powers needed connection to a special type of crystal called lurinite. Without it, her cells would collapse. The council knew this. They weren't just locking her up. They were slowly killing her. And Dax, he was done watching. That night, while the station slept and the stars drifted quietly outside the windows, Dax put on a black uniform, grabbed a forged access card, and walked toward the prison deck. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He walked like he belonged there. The guards at the cell door looked up. One raised an eyebrow. You again. New security protocol, Dax said calmly, holding up the card. Direct order from Sector Admiral Gennari. The guards exchanged a look. One shrugged. You can check, but don't open the door. No one touches her. Understood, Dax replied. They stepped aside. Dax's heart beat harder as he stepped up to the thick steel door. He glanced through the small glass window. Alara was asleep, curled in the corner, arms around herself, shivering. She looked even smaller now. He took a deep breath. His fingers hovered over the control panel beside the door. He knew this was the moment. One push, and there was no turning back. He looked at the camera in the corner. Then, he pulled out a small EMP chip and stuck it onto the camera's power line. The camera went dark. The guards didn't notice. Dax swiped his card. The door hissed open. Inside, the cold hit him like a punch. No heater. No light. Nothing. He stepped in and gently shut the door behind him. Alara opened her eyes slowly. She blinked in surprise. Her lips trembled. She didn't speak. Dax knelt in front of her and pulled a sealed food pack from his jacket. Then a small blanket. Then a bottle of clean water. He held them out. Alara stared. Then, very slowly, she reached forward and took the food with shaking hands. She ate silently, tears falling down her cheeks. She didn't thank him. She didn't need to. Dax sat quietly beside her. After a few minutes, she whispered, "Why are you helping me?" Dax looked at her and said, "Because I once had a little sister. She was lost in a war. No one helped her. No one listened. I couldn't save her. But maybe I can save you." Alara stared at him for a long time. Then she whispered, "They're afraid of me." "Why?" he asked. She looked down at her hands. "Because I hear the stars, and they hear me." Dax didn't understand what that meant, but somehow he believed her. Suddenly, a loud voice boomed through the station speakers. Level 3. Power GLITCHDTETTE. Security RESET in 3 minutes. Dax jumped to his feet. The camera would reboot soon. He looked at her. "I have to go, but I'll come back." Alara nodded slowly, holding the blanket tight around her. Before leaving, Dax placed a small object in her hand. A silver coin. "Hold this if you're scared," he said. "It belonged to my sister." Then he slipped out of the cell and closed the door behind him. Back in the security room, Dax reconnected the camera line just before the system rebooted. The feed blinked back online, showing nothing out of place. No one suspected a thing, but things were changing. For the first time in 2 years, Alara had food, water, warmth. For the first time, someone saw her as more than a danger. Dax returned to his quarters and pulled up star maps on his screen. He searched for one thing: Lurianite crystal sources. He found a few. All of them far. All of them guarded. All of them illegal to enter. But it didn't matter. He was going to get one. For her. Meanwhile, on the high-orbit council ship, Elder Dranok stared at a blinking alert on his private screen. Camera disruption in the girl's cell. He narrowed his eyes. Bring me footage. Now. Another alien nodded and rushed out. Dranok stood and looked out the wide glass window, watching the stars drift across space. She's waking up, he muttered, and someone is helping her. He clenched his fists. We cannot allow that. What she really is. The next morning, Dax didn't report for duty. He called in a false maintenance issue on Deck 12, just to stay away from the prison cameras. He couldn't take any risks. One wrong move, one suspicious glance, and the entire galactic patrol would come crashing down on him. He had broken the law, but he didn't regret it. Because now, Alara was no longer just a mystery. She was someone real, someone who had looked into his eyes, asked why, and then said nothing more, because she didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any scream. Dax spent hours scanning restricted maps and forgotten logs. He learned that there was one place where small shards of Lurianite crystals still existed, an old, illegal mining zone on the edge of a black asteroid field called the Shattered Veil. That place was dangerous. The last patrol ship that entered the Veil had vanished. No signal, no trace. But Dax knew one thing: Alara wouldn't survive much longer without the crystal's energy. Her body was growing weaker. She needed Lurianite the way humans needed oxygen. It was part of her DNA. It wasn't just power. It was life. That night, just like before, Dax returned to her cell. This time, he didn't bring food or water. He brought truth. He sat beside her on the cold floor and opened a small holopad. He showed her images of her parents, her kingdom, and the explosion that killed everything she once knew. At first, Alara didn't say a word. She just stared at the pictures. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched her mother's face on the screen. A spark lit in her fingertip. The image flickered. Dax noticed. Is that your power? He asked softly. Alara pulled her hand back. I don't know what it is. It just happens when I feel too much. Dax watched as her hands started to glow, not with fire, but with tiny lights, like stars trapped beneath her skin. She was holding something inside her. Something big. Something cosmic. Suddenly, the walls of the cell began to vibrate. Just slightly, but enough to set off Dax's instincts. He reached for his scanner. Nothing was wrong. And yet, something felt wrong. Alara closed her eyes. Her breathing changed. The air grew heavy, like gravity had thickened. Dax stood up, alarmed. Alara, what's happening? She opened her eyes, and in that moment, the stars in her pupils began to move, tiny galaxies spinning in deep blue orbs. I see them, she whispered. Who? The ones who are coming. And then it happened. A wave of invisible energy burst from her body. Not loud, not fiery, but like a deep echo through space. The metal walls rippled, and Dax's wrist comm short-circuited. The lights flickered and died. And then, silence. Dax blinked in shock. Alara, what are you? She looked at him, her body glowing faintly in the dark cell, her voice trembling but steady. I'm not just Zetherian, she said. I'm not just alien. He stepped closer. Then what are you? Alara lifted her hand. A swirl of golden dust rose from her palm. My mother wasn't fully Zetherian, she whispered. She came from the blue world. She called it Earth. Dax's eyes widened. What? She said humans have the power to feel, to love, to fight for others. She said that's where my light comes from. Dax felt the world shift around him. She wasn't just alien royalty. She was half human. And that changed everything. Suddenly, alarms screamed through the station. Code red. Unregistered. TRDD energy surge. All CCC2RS report. Dax ran to the door and peeked outside. Red lights flashed in the halls. Guards were already mobilizing. They had felt it. They had felt her power. Dax turned to Elara. I have to get you out now. She nodded, clutching the coin he gave her. His sister's coin, still tight in her hand. But there was no time for a full escape tonight. Dax had to move fast. He quickly opened the panel under the bench and stashed a small bag inside. It had a comlink, a hologram map, and a mini stabilizer made from old ship parts. Hide this, he whispered. If I don't come back in 3 days, follow the map. It'll lead you to the hangar bay. Take the ship. It's coded to my ID. Elara stared at him. But why are you doing this? Dax looked at her, really looked. Not at her powers, not at her past, not at her blood. At her. Because you're not a weapon, he said. You're a child, a survivor. And the galaxy's afraid of you because they know you'll survive them all. As Dax stepped out of the cell and sealed the door behind him, he found himself face to face with Commander Vex, the security chief of the station. Where were you? Vex asked. Power surge knocked my route offline, Dax replied calmly. Strange. Surveillance shows you near the prison again. Dax's heart skipped. I was doing checks, he lied. Standard protocol. Vex stared at him for a moment too long, then gave a thin smile. We'll talk later, soldier. Dax nodded and walked away. He didn't look back. Up in the council ship above the station, Elder Dranok watched a glowing report. His face darkened. She's begun to awaken, and someone is helping her. He turned to a tall, shadowed figure beside him, a bounty hunter in silver armor. Bring me the girl, Dranok ordered, and kill the human. The bounty hunter nodded, then vanished into the dark. Escape from the void. Dax Monroe didn't sleep for the next 2 days. Not because he didn't want to, but because sleep was now dangerous. The station had changed. It was colder, quieter, full of long stares and short answers. The crew walked faster. Security bots scanned everything twice. The air was tight with suspicion. And worst of all, Commander Vex had started watching him. Every step, every shift, every login. Dax knew his time was running out. But so was Elara's. On the third night, Dax received a silent message on his private channel, one he hadn't used since his combat days. They know. Move now. There was no name, just coordinates. Hangar Bay 9, docked and ready. It was the ship he prepared weeks ago. An old stealth-class jumper he'd fixed up himself. Fast, quiet, off the radar, perfect for one mission. Rescue and escape. He didn't wait. He didn't think. He just moved. Dax slipped out of his barracks in full gear, armored vest, energy pistol, 2 data chips hidden in his boot, and 1 tracking jammer clipped to his belt. He took the long path, through lower decks, under piping tunnels, through sections marked Danger, Radiation Leak, places security avoided. Finally, he reached the prison level. 2 guards stood at Elara's door. They didn't recognize Dax right away. He wore a helmet and blackout suit. Security override, he said in a deep voice. Command wants the girl moved. High threat level. Now, 1 guard asked. Middle of the night. Check your orders, Dax replied. The guards looked down at their holopads, and saw the fake transfer code he had uploaded 2 hours earlier. One guard sighed. Fine. She's your problem now. Inside the cell, Alara was already waiting. She stood, eyes calm, holding the silver coin in one hand and Dax's hidden bag in the other. You came, she whispered. I said I would. Dax gave her a small smile. But now we run. The escape began in shadows. They moved fast, Dax leading her through dark corners of the station, past sleeping drones, through service shafts and vent tunnels. Alara never spoke, but her eyes never left him. Every few minutes she paused, clutching her chest, breathing hard. Her body was fading. She didn't have long. Finally, they reached Hangar Bay 9. The ship was there, silent, black, hidden under shadows. They were almost free. But the second they stepped into the hangar, a deep voice echoed through the air. How noble. A soldier saving a dying child. Dax spun around. A tall figure stepped from the shadows, wrapped in silver armor, face hidden by a black helmet with glowing red eyes. The bounty hunter. Dax pulled his pistol. Move, or I'll drop you. The bounty hunter laughed. You won't shoot. You still think she's just a child. I know what she is, Dax said, and I'm still going to save her. You're a fool, the bounty hunter replied. Then, in a flash, he attacked. The fight was brutal. Metal fists crashed against Dax's armor. Sparks flew as energy blades clashed. The bounty hunter was stronger, faster, trained to kill. But Dax had something else. A reason. He fought with everything he had. He took hits, gave hits. He pushed the bounty hunter back toward the fuel station, kicked over canisters, dropped sparks into the vapor cloud. Boom! A small explosion sent the bounty hunter flying across the hangar. Dax grabbed Alara and ran to the ship. They jumped inside. Buckle up, he shouted. Alara slid into the seat beside him, trembling. Dax slammed the ignition. The ship roared to life. Lasers hit the side. Security bots activated. Red lights filled the hangar. But they were already lifting off. The doors above them opened, revealing the cold stars beyond. And then, they were gone. The ship raced through space at top speed. But Dax didn't head for safety. He flew straight into danger, into a region known as the Void. No one sane entered the Void. It was a swirling mess of broken planets, black holes, abandoned mines, and space storms. Communications didn't work there. Maps went dead. Ships vanished forever. But it also held something else. Lurinite, the one thing that could keep Alara alive. As they entered the Void, the ship shook violently. The stars disappeared. The sky turned gray and red. Lightning crackled in space. Warning alarms screamed. Dax held the controls tight. Almost there. Alara groaned in pain beside him. Her hands were glowing again, but weaker now. He looked at her. Hold on. Just a little more. She nodded. Barely. Then they saw it. A floating asteroid cracked open like a giant egg. Glowing blue shards drifted inside. The remains of the lost Lurinite mine. Dax flew straight toward it. Hold steady, he said. But before they could reach it, a shadow fell over the ship. A second bounty hunter ship. Faster, newer, armed. They had been followed. Dax cursed. We're not going to make it. I can help, Alara said weakly. No, you're too weak. But she didn't listen. She closed her eyes. Her skin glowed bright. She whispered something in a language Dax didn't know. Then, a burst of golden light exploded from the ship. The enemy ship's systems crashed. Its engines died, and it drifted away into the darkness. Dax looked at her in shock. She had saved them. But now, Alara had collapsed. They landed on the asteroid. Dax rushed out, grabbed a shard of Lurinite, and brought it back. He placed it in her hands. For a moment, Nothing. Then, the shard pulsed. Alara's body lifted slightly. The stars in her eyes began to spin again. Her voice returned. Barely. I remember now. Who I am. Dax looked at her and whispered, "Then it's time to show them." The last sanctuary. The asteroid floated silently in the heart of the void. Dark matter clouds surrounded it like broken wings, and flashes of red lightning lit the sky in strange patterns. No maps showed this place. No beacons. No patrols. Just dead ships, shattered satellites, and forgotten war machines drifting in silence. But inside a hidden crater on the asteroid, something rare still lived. A sanctuary. Dax guided the damaged ship into a cave with smooth rock walls and glowing crystals. The ship's engines hissed as they shut down, sparks dancing from the sides. The journey through the void had almost torn the ship apart, but they had made it. Dax stood and turned to the back of the ship, where Alara lay still. She wasn't glowing now. Her skin was pale again, her breath slow and shallow. She had used too much energy stopping the bounty hunter. But her fingers still clutched the Lurianite crystal, and tiny pulses of blue light flickered through her veins like lightning beneath ice. "She's stabilizing," Dax whispered to himself. "She's fighting." He carried her carefully down the loading ramp and into the cave. The deeper they walked, the warmer it got. Lurianite crystals grew from the walls, humming softly, glowing like frozen blue fire. The energy here was strong, old, untouched, pure. In the center of the cave stood a rusted outpost, a human-made research base, long abandoned. It had been used decades ago, during the Earth-Cythera peace missions, forgotten by the galaxy, but not by everyone. As Dax entered the base, old lights flickered on. A robotic voice said, "Welcome, Captain Monroe." Dax froze. Only one person still called him that. Is someone here?" he asked. A door opened. Out stepped an old man with cybernetic legs, wearing a dusty coat and a crooked smile. "I was starting to think you died, boy," the man said. Dax blinked. "Dr. Keller." The old man laughed. Still alive, still angry, and still smarter than everyone else. Dr. Keller had once been the chief scientist for Earth's Joint Alien Research Project, until the Galactic Council shut him down. He refused to destroy his notes on hybrid evolution. He believed human-alien DNA could unlock new levels of power, healing, and peace. So they erased him. But Dax remembered him. He never forgot the man who tried to save both sides. And now, the man who knew the secrets of hybrid children was standing in front of him. "Help her," Dax said, placing Alara on an old medical table. "She's half Cytherian, half human, and she's dying." Keller leaned in, scanned her body, then nodded slowly. "She's more than just hybrid," he whispered. "She's a key." Hours passed. Keller worked fast, using crystal chambers, neural dampeners, and light-sound frequencies to sync Alara's energy with the Lurianite. Dax stayed beside her, silent, wiping sweat from his brow, gripping his weapon every time the machines beeped. Then, finally, her breathing steadied, her fingers moved, and her eyes opened. This time, they didn't just glow. They blazed. Golden lines moved under her skin like living circuits. Her voice sounded stronger, deeper, wiser. "I remember everything now," she said. Keller stepped back. "You've awakened the celestial core." Dax frowned. "The what?" Keller looked at Alara with both awe and fear. "She is not just a child of two worlds. She is the first being whose cells accepted Lurianite fully. She doesn't just use energy. She creates it." Alara stood up slowly. "My parents knew. That's why they hid me." "And that's why the Council wanted you dead," Keller added. "They knew what would happen if you survived." Dax stepped forward. "What would happen?" Alara looked him in the eyes. "I could bring balance." Suddenly, the entire cave shook. A siren blared from the outpost's control board. Keller's eyes widened. They found us. Outside the asteroid, 3 warships appeared through the storm. Council-class destroyers. They had tracked the energy surge, and they weren't here to talk. Inside the cave, Dax grabbed his rifle and ran to the ship. "We can't fight them," Keller warned. "Even with her powers, they'll bomb this place to dust." Dax looked at Alara, but she was calm. She stepped outside the base, stood in front of the asteroid's edge, and closed her eyes. The crystals around her glowed brighter. The wind stopped. Then, a wave of light exploded from her body, rising into space like a beacon. The warships paused. Their scanners failed. Their weapons shut down. A voice rang through every speaker, every helmet, every brain. "I am not your enemy. I am not your mistake. I am your future." Then silence. On board the council ship, Elder Dranok stood frozen. "What is that?" an officer whispered. Dranok's face twisted in fear. "She's not just alive. She's ascending." The officer looked confused. "Sir, she's becoming something more. Something we can't control." Back on the asteroid, Alara opened her eyes. The warships began to retreat. One by one. No fight. No orders. Just fear. Later, inside the base, Dax stood beside her. "You stopped them without firing a shot," he said. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," she replied. "I just wanted them to see." "See what?" "That the galaxy is changing." Dr. Keller walked in, holding a data chip. "This has proof of everything. Your birth, your parents, the lies the council told. If we broadcast it, the galaxy will rise up." Dax looked at Alara. She nodded. "It's time they know the truth. The girl who changed everything." The truth moved faster than warships. Within 2 days, the data chip that Dr. Keller gave to Dax was uploaded across hundreds of independent networks. The encrypted files included secret council orders, energy test results, recordings of Alara's imprisonment, and most importantly, proof of her origin. She wasn't a curse. She wasn't dangerous. She was hope. Half Cytherian, half human. Born of 2 worlds. A child meant to unite, not destroy. And the galaxy listened. The people of Cythera, who believed their royal line was lost, wept when they saw the video of little Alara laughing in the palace garden. The people of Earth, once told that hybrids were unstable, watched the files in shock and guilt. Many had followed orders blindly. They had turned their backs while a child was being slowly erased. But now, they knew the truth. Across planets, protests began. On trading stations and mining colonies, workers refused to serve council ships. Scientists and historians demanded access to the celestial core theory. The idea that a being like Alara could evolve into something new, something powerful, something peaceful. The council tried to stop the broadcast, but it was too late. The truth had reached the stars. And while the galaxy burned with questions, Alara stood quietly in the cave. The crystals around her now responded to her presence. When she walked, they glowed. When she touched them, they sang. She no longer feared her power. She understood it. It wasn't made for war. It was made for connection. She could feel emotions, memories, frequencies of life, not just from people, but from planets, animals, machines. Her gift was not to destroy, but to balance. Dax watched her train every day. Sometimes she floated gently above the crystal fields. Sometimes she bent light into shapes, birds, stars, waves of memory that danced in the air. But she never smiled. Not fully. "Why do you look sad?" Dax asked one morning. Alara turned to him. "I'm not sad. I'm becoming." But the galaxy wasn't ready for peace. Not all of it. High above, in the shadow of a gas giant, the council's supreme warship waited. Inside, Elder Dranok stood with his final weapon, an ancient sphere that pulsed with dark energy. "If she connects fully with the core," he said, She will rewrite the energy laws of the galaxy. We will lose control over the systems, over time itself. Another general stepped forward. Sir, people are rising. She is becoming a symbol. Symbols can be erased, Drenok growled. Even bright stars can be snuffed out. That night, a stealth missile was launched. It carried no warning, no sound, only death. It flew through the void, aimed straight at the asteroid sanctuary. Inside, Dax was resting beside his weapon. He felt it before he saw it. A change in pressure, a flicker in the air. The missile came faster than light. But before it hit, Alara stepped outside. She raised her hand, and for the first time, she stopped time. Everything froze. The wind, the dust, the stars. Even Dax, reaching for his rifle, was suspended in motion. Alara walked calmly toward the missile. Her body glowed, but not with fire, with calm, with light, with truth. She touched the missile. It dissolved into glowing dust, falling like feathers. Then she turned back and released time. The explosion never came. But the galaxy felt something that night. A wave of peace swept through hundreds of systems. Arguments stopped. Soldiers paused. Children had dreams of flying lights and golden fields. The people began to say her name, not as a warning, as a blessing. In the days that followed, the council fractured. Some leaders stepped down. Others disappeared. The bounty hunters were disbanded. The prisons were opened and reviewed. Peace talks began across planets that had been at war for generations. And at the center of it all was the girl they once tried to kill. 1 month later, on a glowing mountaintop in the neutral zone of Solara Prime, representatives from Earth, Zithira, and 14 other planets gathered. A large silver platform stood before them. Alara stepped onto it, wearing no crown, no armor, only a simple white robe. Dax stood behind her, quiet and proud. Dr. Keller watched from the crowd, wiping tears from his eyes. Alara raised her hand. The crowd went silent. "I do not ask for power," she said. "I ask for unity. I do not ask for titles," she added. "I ask for truth. I am not your queen, your leader, or your ruler. I am your bridge." The crowd erupted in applause. After the speech, Dax walked with her under the twin suns. "So, what now?" he asked. She looked up. "I'll keep walking." "To where?" "To every place that still hurts." Dax smiled. "You know they'll write books about you, right? Build statues. Name stars after you." Alara shrugged. "Let them. But I hope they'll also remember you." "Me? You were the first to break the rules," she said. "The first to care." And with that, the girl who was once locked in a cold, dark cell became the light that helped the galaxy heal.